I'm 66 years old, 30 years since the last time I sat on a 500cc. But every night when I close my eyes, I can still hear it. That high-pitched scream of a two-stroke engine at full throttle. I can still feel the front end chattering under my hands at 280 kilometers per hour. I can still remember the exact moment when the rear tire would start to slide and you had 0.3 of a second to decide, roll off the throttle or trust your hands. People ask me this question all the time. Who was the greatest rider you ever saw? They think the answer is about speed. It isn't. MotoGP was never about speed. Every one of us had speed. MotoGP was about who stayed calm when the bike was trying to kill you. In my day, the bike was always trying to throw me off. The greatest riders I ever faced, they were the ones who could calm it down. I raced against some of those legends. I watched the rest from the commentary booth for 30 more years. And only one man, in my eyes, truly understood what control really means. I remember a grid at Suzuka, 1990. I was standing maybe 3 meters behind Wayne Rainey. He wasn't saying anything. He wasn't doing anything. Just staring down toward turn one, helmet on, visor closed. I had raced against a lot of loud men in my career. Wayne was not one of them. When the lights went out, I understood why. Wayne entered turn one like a blade. No throwing the bike in, no drama, no wasted movement. And here is the thing that broke me. His lap 1 looked exactly the same as his lap 25. When you followed Wayne for 20 laps, you realized something terrifying. He simply did not make mistakes. His throttle was always open, always smooth. Never that on-off stab that the rest of us used. His line through a corner was the same every single lap. I would finish a race with my rear tire completely destroyed, and Wayne's tire still had grip left for another 10 laps. Wayne never beat me with speed. He beat me by being perfect for 45 minutes straight, and I could not be perfect for 45 seconds. He won 3 titles in a row, 1990, 1991, 1992. Then came Misano, 1993. I was in the pits when the news came through. Wayne was paralyzed. His career ended at the top. I still remember that day. Kevin Schwantz was the opposite of Wayne in every way. If Wayne was mathematics, Kevin was jazz. If Wayne was a blade, Kevin was a hammer thrown through a window. I raced behind Kevin many times in my career. And I can tell you honestly, I never once guessed what he was going to do on the next lap. You would come into a braking zone together. You would be on the limit, absolutely on the limit. And then out of nowhere, Kevin would come diving up the inside from a place that should not have been physically possible. He braked 10 meters later than me, 15 meters later. And it was not once, it was every single time. The bike would be sliding, both tires, smoke coming off them, and somehow, it would still make the apex. I always imagined Kevin laughing inside his helmet. Kevin rode on pure instinct, sometimes beyond it. I never knew what he would do next, and I do not think he did either. That was his real weapon. We all knew Kevin would lunge on the last lap. Every single one of us knew it, but not one of us knew where. That uncertainty broke good riders. It broke Wayne in some races. It broke me in many more. He finally won his title in 1993 after Wayne went down. But for the fans, Kevin had already won years before. But instinct burns tires. And eventually, it burns careers too. I was in my final seasons when Mick Doohan arrived in the paddock. I raced against him for a few years before I hung up my leathers. And even then, I could see something different in him. Something I had not seen in Wayne, in Kevin, or in myself. Mick did not need to overtake a lot of people. He was already leading from lap 1. His races were time trials, with 19 other men happening to be on the same track. His throttle opened as smooth as butter. The rear tire was always in the grip window. Never over it, never under it. He just let the bike flow beneath him, perfectly balanced, lap after lap. The thing Mick did better than anyone was managing that rear tire on the last lap when the rest of us had nothing left. Mick still had grip, he still had drive, just his right wrist and a feel that no engineer could teach. Then came Assen, 1992. I was there that day. Mick crashed hard. He nearly lost his right leg. The doctors told him he would never race again. So Mick did something nobody had ever done. He built a thumb-operated rear brake because his foot could no longer work a pedal. And then he came back and dominated for 5 years in a row, from 1994. Mick managed the rear tire better than anyone I ever raced against. And he did it on a body that never fully healed. That is not talent. That is something else entirely. Then a new generation arrived. Riders who did not just control the limit, they went past it and somehow survived. I was sitting in the commentary box at Phillip Island in 2013. A 20-year-old kid had just become the youngest premier class champion in the history of the sport. I remember turning to the person next to me and saying, "This kid is not riding the same sport we did." And I meant it. I had seen Wayne, I had seen Mick, I had raced against them. I thought I knew what the limit of a motorcycle looked like. Then Marc Marquez arrived and he rewrote the entire book. His lean angle was 64 degrees, higher than anyone before him. The front tire would tuck, and in that moment, in any other era, the rider would already be on the ground. But not Marc. Marc would drop his elbow onto the track. He would use that elbow as a third point of balance. And somehow, he would pick the bike up and keep going. I raced for 13 years. I commentated for 30 more. What Marc does with the front, I have never seen before. He saves crashes. That should be impossible. 6 MotoGP titles in 7 years. Then came Jerez, 2020. He broke his arm. What followed was 4 years of hell, 4 surgeries. Most people wrote him off. But in 2024 and 2025, Marc came back on the Ducati and he proved something important. No surgeon could cut out the spirit of that man. But even that was not the full picture of greatness. I watched Valentino Rossi for 2 decades from the commentary booth, and there is something I have to admit, even though it hurts a little as a former racer to say it out loud. Valentino was not the fastest rider on any given lap. He was not the one who braked the deepest. He was not as mad as Marc. He was not as disciplined as Wayne. He was not as instinctive as Kevin. But he won. When he needed to win, he always won. And that, I came to understand, is the difference. Valentino saw things on a racetrack that nobody else saw. He read a race 5 laps before it actually happened. He forced his opponents into mistakes they did not even know they were going to make. On lap 22, he was already setting up what he needed for lap 25. His tires had grip left when everyone else was finished because he had saved it for the exact moment it mattered. And the mind games, with Max Biaggi, it was psychological warfare from 2001. With Sete Gibernau at Jerez 2005, one last corner move, and Gibernau never won another MotoGP race again. With Casey Stoner at Laguna Seca 2008, the corkscrew pass that is still the most famous overtake in the history of this sport. And then came Catalunya 2009. I was in the commentary box that day, Rossi against Jorge Lorenzo. Same team, same factory Yamaha. Nobody in Yamaha wanted this situation. Lorenzo led almost the entire race. Last corner, last chance. But the move, it had been set up 3 laps before. Rossi went around the outside on entry, cut sharp to the apex. Their knees touched. The whole commentary box stopped breathing. He won by 0.095 of a second. That day, I realized something. Valentino was not just riding the bike. He was conducting the entire race like an orchestra only he could hear. The rest of us were just playing our instruments. Greatness was never about speed. It was about controlling everything. The bike, the opponent, the flow of the race, time itself. You know something? I finished second in the World Championship 4 times. 1980, 1981, 1984, 1987. 4 times. Never once first. Never once did I stand on top of that podium at the end of a season. I had speed. Every man who raced 500cc had speed. But I was not the one who controlled it best. And I have had a long time to make peace with that. 13 years on the bike, 30 years in the commentary booth. I have seen Rainey, Schwantz, Doohan, Marquez, Rossi. Each one of them was great in his own way. Each one of them had something I did not have. We all had speed. That was the easy part. Not all of us had control. And that difference between the ones who won and the ones like me, that was everything. The greatest rider is not the fastest man on the grid. He is the one who stays at the edge the longest. The one who turns chaos into a song that only he can hear. And the one who did it better than anyone I ever faced, watched, or knew in 43 years in this sport was Valentino